And the first thing that I would like to address at the request of numerous residents, business owners, and others is the proposed Chester River Bridge closing by the State Highway Administration. So there was a public meeting held by the SHA regarding this topic. Unfortunately, I wasn't even aware that the meeting was happening until the day before. I was contacted by Billy Short asking me if I was going to go, and I said, go to what? And he said, well, they're having this meeting. And yeah. So the concerns that have been voiced to me is that apparently the plans are to work on the bridge and repaint the bridge next spring around April. And part of it would involve closing one lane, but a big part of it would involve opening both spans and having the bridge essentially be closed for long periods of time, which according to, and I agree that a lot of our residents are concerned, one, about safety issues, especially for the folks across the bridge who essentially rely on our police force, rescue squad, fire company, to basically assist them in a time of crisis. I've also had a lot of concerns from business owners downtown who feel that the hassle of basically going an additional almost half an hour to get here in springtime is going to adversely affect their businesses, which I think is also true. And I think others just felt like, just like Marty said, is the state basically came in and said, we're doing this, and they haven't really considered alternatives that would be less obtrusive to our community. So what I would like to hopefully see us do is write a letter expressing our concerns on behalf of concerns that have been relayed to us by our citizens, and send it to the powers that be at SHA.
And any citizen out there is certainly welcome to. You can send it to O'Malley if you can't think of anybody else. But sometimes they do respond to correspondence from probably as much from citizens as they do from the government.
So what I'd like to do is why don't we as a council first outline some concerns that we might put in a letter, and then if anybody in the audience, I know Paul has been very involved with this, has additional things that we don't mention, now would be a good time to speak up, and hopefully we can represent everybody's concerns in the letter. And I would suggest that Bill would craft the letter, we would review it and approve it and then sign it. So Liz.
I have to say that I'm as concerned about this bridge closing as anyone else. But at the Council of Governments meeting on Wednesday, we did have quite a discussion about it. And I understand that it wasn't well described at that public meeting, but the real problem is, and I'm playing the devil's advocate here, that they need to sandblast and prime and paint not only the bridge that we see, but all of the mechanism in the vestibule, the opening part of the bridge. And that EPA regulations dictate that none of the product from the sandblasting, the primer painting, all that chips, none of that can fall in the river. So that the bridge has to be open for all that time that they're working on at least that part of the bridge. That's my understanding.
How does that make it more easily contained? Why
because the whole thing will be encapsulated with
plastic,
with cloth or plastic or something.
That's what they have on the Bay Bridge.
And the Bay Bridge, there are no moving parts. There's no mechanism. It doesn't open and close, so that's not an issue. We've all been over the Bay Bridge, and if you look from one span to the other when they're painting, you can see that they have all this cloth underneath to catch all those chips. But none of that stuff can fall into the water.
Let's create our list and then see if Paul can augment our list. So I would say safety is a big issue, particularly for the residents on the Kingstown side of the bridge. I would say that our merchants are very concerned that there's really not a quick way around the river, and that they feel that the detour will adversely have adverse economic conditions, not just in Chestertown, but throughout the county.
Well, the volunteer farmers are really going to be hurting because they have a large contingent of people who live over in Chestertown.
Correct. I think that's another concern that's been brought up, is that it's not just our trucks being able to get to the fire, it's the firemen being able to
Live
get to
over
the
there.
trucks, especially the ones that live across the bridge, in a timely manner. What else?
Nothing, I mean, this is something I have an issue with. If there's anything, an accident on the other side of the Chester River Bridge, right now, Churchill's the first responder.
Right. I think another legitimate gripe on our end is I don't feel like I had almost any notice that the meeting was happening, so, did you?
No.
So,
No, usually I just, as soon as I get, I forward on to the
That's my
council.
objection to them, they just go ahead and.
They did it with the
they come in
county.
here.
So
I
I-
did
still
it
waiting.
through and with the county, because I went to the county thing that they had about, projects, and that's the first I heard of.
I agree. So I would say we didn't feel like, as a governing entity, we weren't given adequate notice.
Job doesn't include that.
Okay, so Bill, can you read the list that we've generated? I want us to be thinking of, is there anything else that we want to add?
I mean, should we start preparing for contingencies? I mean, I think it would be wise to let Churchill know that, listen, we won't be able to respond nearly as fast. Let Centerville Police and the Queen Anne Sheriff know that they're.
I'm sure that
they're
would
gonna have
happen.
to,
Yeah.
They're not gonna be able to transport across the bridge.
Well, let's read the
All right.
list that we have.
First one
Our
was
concerns.
resident safety, Kingstown residents, vis-a-vis the hospital, personal injury. Second was merchants, town and county, the detour and the economic impact of that. Third was volunteer fire company, volunteers that live in Chester Harbor and vicinity. Then they brought up an accident on that side. Churchill would be first responders. The next one was the clarification of lane closures versus complete close downs of the bridge. We don't really have a really good idea how that works. A complaint of inadequate notice to the town originally, and alternate plans to repair.
I came because I was one of the few people that caught the last minute notice that there would be a public meeting, and I was free Friday morning. There
Right.
were no merchants there, with the exception of the hauls from Georgetown. And I think that actually leads into perhaps answering the question of when and how. I know the hauls were there because that bridge is first. Temperatures must be 40 degrees and rising. They estimate mid-March. They estimate the Sassafras River Bridge to take 3 to 4 weeks. So I'm just connecting the dots. Another tough winter. It's really the last of March that it can be done, and it happens to take 4 weeks. So now we're looking at April 20th. And if our bridge lasts 4 weeks, then we're looking at May the 20 what? Mother's Day, graduation,
Tea party.
tea party, also too much.
Do you want to say anything on behalf of the college, Joe, about this?
Well, I think the first responders are very well represented, and the state heard, I don't know if they listened to what the first responders were representing to them. From the college's perspective, we went and shared that, the time period that we're looking at, if we're after we finish the Georgetown Bridge and come down here, that we close our class out May 1. That's our deadline. We get
Yeah.
one bite at that apple to get our class, and that last month of April is the heaviest visit month for us. And so we don't want to do anything to make it more difficult for somebody to visit the college.
Right.
And the first impression when you drive over that bridge and you see Chestertown, that's an important selling part for us. We advocated that they do the Chestertown Bridge as late as possible, sometime after Labor Day, but before downrigging.
When you say visitation, do you mean visitation by prospective students?
Prospective students, they
Okay.
make their deposits on May 1. So this is the
Gotcha,
last
gotcha.
time they come back and check again and see if this is where they want to commit for 4 years.